Welcome back. You're also watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Now, at the start of this week, Burundian citizens went to polls to elect 100 MPs for 18 provinces and 1,785 communal councillors for 119 communes with 15 councillors for each communal entity. The turnout was low in and around the capital city of Bujumbura, partly because the election was boycotted by the opposition and many civic groups. However, the Burundian president, Pierre Nkurunziza, claimed an early victory in Monday's parliamentary poll. The Electoral Commission expects the results to be announced in a few days, but it declined to comment on the turnout. President Nkurunziza's decision to seek a third term has sparked months of protests around the country. His supporters say the vote was free and fair. Well, the Burundi Electoral Commission might have declined to comment on the turnout for the parliamentary elections, but we will be listening to the comments of Mr. Abiodun Ajijola, who is an election observer, and he joins us from the Ondo State capital, Akure. Mr. Ajijola, thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, tell us, how do elections which have little or no observation, like what we've seen in Burundi, how do they often turn out?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why we have election observation primarily is to provide credibility and authenticity to the electoral process. As you know, countries are not islands. Every country interrelates in the global, world. So it's important for countries, especially countries that have had issues in the area of democracy, to prove to the world that they are improving in their internal electoral process. So observing elections is very, very critical. Now, when a country is having some key election observer groups like the European Union, African Union, refusing to observe those elections, already that has passed a vote of no confidence on those elections. And ultimately, it has great negative impact for the country. For example, it would likely lead to international isolation, because eventually what's going to happen is that the international community will regard that country as being autocratic and undemocratic. And therefore, aid to that country will probably be reduced. They will have challenge with international relations, with major economic powers. If FDI, foreign direct investment, will likely be reduced tremendously, because, I mean, investors will be afraid of investing in a country that does not have a stable democracy. So there's going to be a lot of issues. You have a case in Zimbabwe, for example, which, you can see today the economic situation of Zimbabwe as a result of the undemocratic tendencies of Robert Mugabe. So this is a serious situation for Burundi. And in the worst case scenario, you could even have a civil war, because if people are unhappy with the electoral process, they tend to take other decisions, or take up arms, or look for another way to get, to power. And that is a grave danger for Burundi.
Now, we know that Burundi is an aid-reliant country, especially concerning the funds that it gets from the EU, and also a member state of the AU. You've explained what the consequences might be as regards those aspects. But is there any way to turn the situation around at this point?
It's a bit challenging. Yeah, I mean, a month ago, yes, a lot of African nations, I know the Tanzanian president and some other AU leaders had asked the president, Pierre Nkurunziza, to actually postpone the elections until these issues were resolved. But now they have gone ahead with the elections, so it's a bit more difficult. Definitely his intention at this point is to be announced winner, and probably after that create a peace process, maybe a government of national unity, or try to reach out to the opposition to create a kind of palliative situation. That is probably the direction the president would try to go in. Unfortunately, this direction may not be accepted by the international community. And as Burundi relies a lot on aid, I think they are going to experience drastic reduction in aid that flows to the nation. So the best thing that can be done at this moment, though it's highly unlikely, is for the president to refuse to accept, the results of the election and agree to a peace process whereby an election which will be accepted, which will be credible, will be conducted. But it's highly unlikely that he's ready to do this.
Unlikely, but let's just see how things play out. Mr. Ajijola, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Ajijola is an election observer reporting from Akure.